Three. Welcome to the Terran Files. I'm Jamie Young, and today I am joined with Brian Katcher, who is a writer of young adult books. He has won the 2011 Stonewall and Young Adult Literary Award for Almost Perfect, and the winner of the 2010-2011 North Carolina Young Adult Books Award. For Playing with Matches. Let's start off with Almost Perfect.
All right.
I read through the reviews and also the synopsis, and from what I can tell, it was a very well written story between a relationship with a cisgender boy and a transgender girl. From the reviews, you pretty much hit it on the nose. And I am, being trans myself, I am very impressed that somebody who is cisgender could relate to what the transgender community deals with.
Well, thank you very much. But I have to say, just because the professional book reviewers liked it doesn't mean all the public liked it. I've heard from a lot of transgender people who said I absolutely nailed it on the head, and I've heard from a lot who said I absolutely blew it, and that's not how it works at all. And I take those criticisms very seriously. My only excuse is I was one of the first young adult authors to write about a transgender character, and I tried my hardest, and I think in some parts I succeeded, in some parts I really feel I failed, and the fault is mine. But I'm glad I was able to put the issue out at a time when you saw almost no books about transgender people in young adult literature.
Yeah, most of the books that have been written have been by transgender people, and they've been always meant for the adult community, not so much for the young adults. In one of the reviews, it mentions that the trans character attempted suicide, which is not uncommon within the trans community. My own experience with suicide in itself, which is a definite thing to point out. Though, to be quite honest, you are very popular, especially with the Florida Tea Party.
Yeah.
They want to burn your book, so you
know who your friends are, I guess, by who your enemies are. And the Florida Tea Party did try to have Almost Perfect removed from high school libraries unsuccessfully, I'm happy to say. But I look at other books on that list, and I am just honored to be in such impressive company. I'm like, wow, I never thought I'd be on a book list with Toni Morrison.
Yeah. Now all you have to do is get into the limelight of, say, Thomas Wolfe, and others that have been said that we need to get rid of.
Yeah.
Like some of Shakespeare's plays.
It's I'm a librarian myself, and at the lower elementary level, so it's I don't deal with that as much. But pretty much any book, there's going to be somebody who says it shouldn't be in the library. Mm-hmm. I don't want to read it, therefore nobody should read it.
Yeah, which makes no sense whatsoever. But Playing with Matches, you bring into that the whole precept of image. you know, and one of the characters is a girl that was burned, and she still has the scars from that. A lot of kids tend to not understand that it's best to look beyond what you see. And like I say, I only read the reviews in this, but from what I can tell, it gets right to the point of skin, flesh. It's who the person is.
Well, thank you very much. That was my very first book, and it's about a kid named Leon who is a just shameless author avatar who's in high school. He's really has trouble finding a girlfriend. He wants nothing more in life than a girl who will just accept him for who he is. And then all of a sudden he finds it, but this girl has a face that's badly disfigured, and he has to decide, do I want to date somebody like this? Especially when his longtime crush all of a sudden is showing an interest in him. And we think back, we like to think it's only teenagers who make this mistake, but really it's happens in adulthood too.
Mm-hmm.
We are obsessed with the superficial, the outward appearance, and skip over people who would be much, much better for us,
Yeah.
simply because they're disfigured or overweight or just not as beautiful as society says it should be.
Right, right. And be quite honest, we all fall into that category. But it was an interesting, from what, like I say, from what I could tell, very interesting. Another one of the books that kind of struck me too is Deacon Lott, I think the name is, went to the
Yes.
prom. And that deals a lot with race and religion and that interplay.
Yes. Deacon Locke, it's the story of a high school senior he's a very awkward boy, and he ends up taking his grandmother to prom when he learns she didn't get to go to her own prom because her boyfriend, who was his grandfather, was serving in Vietnam at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the main gist, but the secondary plot is that he meets a girl his own age, a girl named Soraya, and she is a Lebanese Muslim. And when they start dating, he's kind of a sheltered guy, and he doesn't realize what a big deal that is to some people, and how not everybody can look past the person. They tend to see people as a religion or a race or a stereotype, and he has to confront that kind of head on. And this is a guy who's never actually dated before.
Mm-hmm. But I know that a couple of your books are just lighthearted, fun reading. Let's see here. The Improbable Theory of Anne and Zach. About them going to a sci-fi convention.
That's one of my favorite books. My editor asked me to write a book similar to Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, which was about a couple of very cool kids who had a just crazy night. And she said, I want you to write a book like that, but I don't want them to be cool. I want them to be a couple of nerds. And I thought, well, you come to the right guy there. But where could nerdy kids go that's open all night and a lot of crazy things happen? And I think to a place that's near and dear to my heart, Comic-Con. So It's the story of a couple of kids. Anna's a very straight-laced type A personality, very driven. Zach is a big slacker who just does enough to get by. They're polar opposites. But during this crazy night, they realize they have a lot in common, and they just have a heck of an adventure over about, I'd say, 36 hours.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the 80s movie.
Adventures in Babysitting?
Right.
Yeah,
that was a really classic and good movie.
I enjoyed that. Always had a crush on Elizabeth Shue.
Yeah, but and the other one is kind of very intriguing. Everyone dies at the end. Um, there's flashbacks into it going back over 100 years, it seems like. Yeah, almost 100 years. No,
Yeah,
over 100 years. Over 100 years, yeah.
that was the result of me reading way too much H.P. Lovecraft when I was in college. I went to the University of Missouri at Columbia, and it's such a beautiful old campus. And I always thought there's got to be some ghost here. There's got to be something supernatural going on here. And I just wrote a story about a kid who realizes there was a spate of murders that happened around the campus in the 1930s, but nobody ever really fully investigated this. He starts to try to dig up the past, and he realizes that the organization that was responsible for this is still around and very much wants to shut him up permanently. So it was just my one attempt at a horror novel.
Oh, it sounds like a fun book for anybody at any age to read.
Well, thank you.
But when did you actually start writing?
When did I start writing? Everybody's asked me, I guess you always wanted to be a writer. And the answer is no. That really never occurred to me when I was growing up. If somebody had said, why don't you do some writing? I would have said, yeah, why don't I do some math too while I'm at it? I'm not going to do that. And that's a big regret in my life, is if I had started writing when I was 15, I'd be a much better writer now. But as it was, I never wrote a single thing creatively till I was 25. I was living down in Mexico. My girlfriend at the time announced she was moving to Germany, so adios. And just sitting there completely broke and bummed out in Mexico, I thought, I got to write a book. And I never thought it would ever be published, but it actually turned out to be Playing with Matches. So being broke and miserable in Mexico, that's one way to start your writing career.
Oh, yeah. Well, gives you something to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also find it interesting. Besides you bumming around in Mexico, you spent some time hanging out at an Israeli military base.
Yes, that was.
How did you manage that?
It's a program called Volunteers for Israel, and if you sign up with that, they give you non-combat work to do on the military base in order to keep reservists from being called up. And in exchange, you live in Israel. You can travel on the weekends. They provide your room and board on the base. It's a great way to see a beautiful, beautiful country on the cheap. Though I have to tell you, if there's one thing worse than military food, it's kosher military food.
Yeah, and during Vietnam, during Korea and Vietnam, all they complained about was eating spam.
Yeah.
But another little adventure you had was smuggling food into Cuba. Is that kind of like people trying to smuggle drugs into the U.S. or?
You cut out a little bit there. You're talking about when I smuggled food into Cuba.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was when I was living in Mexico, and this was 20 years ago. It was very hard for Americans to travel to Cuba, but you could travel there from Mexico. So a friend and I decided to go over there for a few days just to see. And we had a friend whose mother lived in Cuba, and she asked us to take a care package over to her just with a bunch of food and toiletries that she couldn't get over there. So, I did that. And later I thought, I just took a bag I did not open into a country with no American embassy. That was probably not the smartest move in the world.
Yeah, I would have to agree on that. But getting back to the first three books, Almost Perfect, Playing with Matches, and Dean Lott Went to the Prom. what was your concept when it came to the characters and how they would be, both the major and minors?
Well, when I started playing with matches, that was just shamelessly taken from my high school experience. The main character was me, the teachers were my teachers, the parents were my parents, the friends were my friends. It was very easy to draw from life. So the characters came easily there.
Mm-hmm.
When I wrote Almost Perfect, however, I had never met a out transgender person, an openly transgender person. So I thought, when I write the character Sage, she was the girl, I have to do this right. I can't come off like some novice writing from his ignorance. So I got on the internet and I talked to a lot of transgender people, and I said, I'm writing a book and I have questions. So if anybody can help me out. And the internet's anonymous. So a lot of people said, yes, this is my story. This is how X, Y, and Z works. And the more I heard people's story, the more I thought, wow, I want to tell this story. I want people to hear about this issue. And some people like Almost Perfect, or they hate it, but I have never heard anybody say they didn't like Sage. She is by far my most successful character, I would have to say.
Yeah. And what about Dean Lott?
Deacon Locke, the plot of this book, my editor came up with, said, I want you to write this book. And this is where I learned the lesson, always listen to your editor, because most of my male characters are charmingly nerdy guys. And I thought, let me get away from that. I'm going to write a guy who is just so completely out of touch with society. It's going to be hilarious. Well, I ended up writing a guy who was about as charming as Frankenstein's monster. And my editor said, "Now go back." And so I went back, I did the charming nerd thing, and it worked out a lot better. Certain authors have a certain type of character they're good at, and that's apparently what I'm good at.
Yeah. But you also do a lot of traveling around the country too. As I've seen on your posts, your recent little excursion.
Yes. Because of the COVID, my wife and I were both school teachers, so we travel with our daughter over summer a whole lot. I recently visited my 50th state last summer, and my wife Sandy has been to 49. We were going to hit Idaho this summer, but because of COVID, we won't get on a plane, and we were just banging our heads off the walls. So we thought, we're going to take a socially distancing vacation. We borrowed my mother-in-law's trailer. We went through 11 states, 5 national parks, didn't go inside any buildings except gas stations, camped every night. We were gone for 2 weeks, and it was just a heck of a lot of fun.
In your travelings, you made it up to Vermont and
Yes.
Montreal.
Yeah, that was a couple of summers ago.
Mm-hmm.
We like to play a game called Ticket to Ride. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a game about traveling to different U.S. cities by railroad, and our goal is to play Ticket to Ride in every city on the Ticket to Ride game. So I drove through Montreal rush hour traffic just so we could play Ticket to Ride in Montreal.
Yeah, well, I've been up in Montreal twice and I got lost, so.
I can see that.
Yeah, but in one of your travels, you have to make it up to Burlington, Vermont, and Plattsburgh, New York.
Okay, I would like that. I was going to visit a friend in Burlington when we were in Vermont last, but we never ended up making it. So next time I'm back there, I will have to check that out. Is that where you're from?
Well, actually, I grew up in the Air Force.
Oh.
Yeah. My family was stationed at March Air Force Base in Riverside, California, and that was back in '64, and that's when I was born. Then from there, then from there we went to Carswell, Whiteman, Plattsburgh.
Okay, my father was in the Air Force at about the same time. He was in Little Rock.
Yeah. But yeah, that's how I got to Plattsburgh.
Okay.
And you basically stayed in Missouri.
Except for 3 years in Mexico, I Missouri born and bred. I was born in St. Louis, and lived in the Ozarks for a little bit. Went to school in Columbia, and now I'm been in Moberly for past 15 or so years.
Yeah. When my family was, I still see my family is originally from Missouri.
What part?
Well, Kansas City and Springfield.
Okay.
And I still have family in Kansas City. I don't know my father's side of the family that well, but I know my mom's side of the family very well. And they live in the Springfield area.
Okay, yeah, we were in Springfield the other day. We went to the teacher store down there. It's a beautiful city. They got a very nice zoo there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I had to, because I heard when we were living in Missouri and when we used to go down to visit my grandparents at their farm, I always heard of Moberly. And I had to take a look on Google Map to see where it was in relationship to St. Louis, Kansas City, Springfield, Sedalia, Warrensburg, Knob Noster, and Whiteman.
Yeah.
And Moberly isn't that far away from Knob Noster and them.
Right, we're just north of Columbia.
Yeah.
My wife has lived here almost her whole life.
Hmm. But one thing I seen that you are a librarian and all that. With the school openings, how are you feeling about that?
Well, it sounds cliche, but we are all dealing with something nobody in this country has dealt with in maybe 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
We are getting conflicting direction from the government. We, above all, want what is best for our kids. We want them to get an education, but we want them to be safe. We want to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
We are just going to have to do what we do every time. When we went to online learning in the spring, we really had 1 or 2 days to switch over, and every teacher buckled down and did it. And I know we are going to succeed in the fall, whether it is in the classroom, whether it is virtual online learning, whether it is a hybrid of the two, whatever it takes to serve our children, we are going to do it. This is going to be my 25th year as a teacher, and obviously I would like it if it was more like last year, where I could be hanging up posters and writing lesson plans right now, but we're just going to play it by ear, and I have a good feeling we're going to succeed at this.
Yeah. By the way, what grade do you teach?
I am the librarian and computer teacher at 2 different kindergarten through 2nd grade schools. I'm in one of them right now, as you can tell. I help them check out books. I read them stories. I help them develop their computer skills. It is a very fun, very rewarding job. I am going to do this till I retire. I just love it.
And keep up the writing.
Yeah. Fortunately, I have summers off, and
those are always the best times to write, right?
Right. So it's funny when dealing with an editor, they don't go along with the school year. So I've been told, like in August, okay, I need a rewrite right now, and I'm thinking, you couldn't have told me that 2 months ago.
Can you just delay the printing of it for another year?
Yeah.
But any ideas on future books?
Well, I've written 4.5 books since my last one came out. I'm just looking for a home for them right now. I have a wonderful editor named Mandy Hubbard, and she is trying to find homes for them. One of them I've written that I'm very proud of. It's Complicated. It's about 4 kids in a high school. There's the macho jock who is dating the girl who is the class president. Then there's the kid who's the king of the drama department, and he is dating the girl who is going to be valedictorian. But the thing is, actually, all 4 of them are gay, and they're not really paired up like that. It's the 2 guys and 2 girls are actually really dating, but for various reasons they can't come out, so they're all 4 covering for each other. But it's just a real house of cards, and if one person is outed, they all will be.
Yeah, so they make it look like.
Right.
Yeah. Now I've heard of, well, can't really say I heard, but I'm aware of when I was going to school myself, there were some kids that you would think that they are, but you're not really sure.
Right. And I would like to live in a world where nobody would ever have to do that, where people wouldn't have to hide who they are. But unfortunately, we're not quite there yet.
True. And with the current administration, yeah. So, but simple question: have you ever been to any of the air shows at Whiteman?
The air shows at Whiteman, I have not. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. I'm hoping to make it back down there, hopefully next year, for their air show, but also to visit my relatives in Springfield and try and connect up with a friend of mine who's a trans service member who's currently stationed at Fort Leonard Wood.
All right. Well, if you ever pass through Columbia, be sure and look me up, and we could have some coffee, provided COVID is over by then.
Yeah, true. But I think this is about it. Nice to have you on, and my dog is barking.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, and you have a nice day. So.